not here today as slaves. We are here today as Macedonian free men!
In this exploration, we delve into the poignant endings of 20 renowned ancient leaders who met tragic fates. From betrayal to warfare and power struggles, their demise paints a vivid tapestry of the volatility that marked ancient civilizations. As we traverse through various epochs and regions, we'll uncover the circumstances that led to the untimely and often gruesome endings of these leaders, shedding light on the perils of leadership in ancient times. Let's journey back and unfold the stories that sealed their tragic ends. Number 1. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, one of the most influential leaders in history, led a life soaked in ambition and political prowess. His rise to power was marked by shrewd alliances and decisive victories in battles. But his reign was abruptly halted through a tragic end that became synonymous with betrayal.
Titus Pullo is with me! And you? Are you with me?
Caesar gradually transformed the Roman Republic into a powerful dictatorship, which garnered him both staunch supporters and fervent enemies. His radical reforms and undisguised ambition stirred discontent among the Senate, the very institution that had granted him unprecedented powers. As Caesar's influence grew, so did the apprehension about his intentions to dissolve the Republic's traditions. The Senate's fear culminated on the Ides of March 44 BCE, when a group of conspirators, including his trusted associate Brutus, orchestrated a brutal assassination, stabbing him 23 times in a calculated act of regicide. This tragic end marked a violent culmination to a reign that had drastically changed the face of the Roman political landscape. Caesar's demise, at the hands of those he walked amongst, mirrored the stark brutality and treachery ingrained in the political milieu of ancient Rome. His death not only signified the end of one man's revolutionary journey, but also served as a grim reminder of the perils of absolute power and the fragility of alliances in the ancient world, thus echoing as a timeless narrative in the annals of history. Number 2. Cleopatra. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, remains an emblematic figure of beauty, intelligence, and political acumen. Her reign was marked by a continuous struggle to maintain the independence and prosperity of Egypt amidst the burgeoning power of the Roman Empire. Cleopatra's alliances with powerful Roman generals like Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were both strategic moves to safeguard Egypt and personal relationships that captured the imagination of generations to come. As the tides of power shifted, Cleopatra found herself in an increasingly precarious position. Her romance and political alliance with Mark Antony drew the ire of Octavian, the future first emperor of Rome. This enmity culminated in a disastrous defeat for Cleopatra and Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. As Octavian's forces advanced on Alexandria, the despairing couple chose a tragic exit from a world which seemed to have no place for their kind of rule and love. In 30 BCE, amidst the turmoil of a fallen city, Cleopatra met her tragic end, an event shrouded in mystery and speculation. The most accepted theory is that she committed suicide by allowing a venomous asp to bite her, choosing a dignified death over a life of humiliation and captivity. Thus, Cleopatra's death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a closure accompanied by the wistful beauty and tragedy that had characterized her life and reign, sealing her story as a poignant chapter in the annals of history. Number 3. Alexander the Great. In a life that burned both bright and brief, Alexander the Great redefined the boundaries of the known world. His unparalleled military conquests stretched from Greece through Asia Minor, Egypt, Persia, and into the realms of India. Yet, it was not a battle that claimed the life of this formidable leader. Instead, it was a sudden illness in the city of Babylon in 323 BCE. At the young age of 32, Alexander found his end, leaving a void that echoed the magnitude of his life and reign. The precise cause of his death remains a subject of speculation, with theories ranging from typhoid fever to poisoning. Despite his brief lifespan, Alexander's legacy has endured, epitomized by the vast empire he built and the cultural synthesis he fostered. His death marked not only the end of an era of unprecedented expansion, but also the beginning of the fragmentation of his colossal empire, a tragic end to a reign that had promised to unite the world under one banner. Number 4. Attila the Hun. Attila the Hun, feared and famed as the Scourge of God, etched a path of destruction and conquest across Europe in the 5th century CE. His reign was marked by relentless campaigns against the Eastern and Western Roman empires, showcasing his military might and instilling fear in the hearts of his enemies. However, the fierce warrior met an unanticipated and abrupt end. In 453 CE, after a grand wedding feast, Attila was found dead in his chambers. The exact circumstances of his death are clouded in mystery, but the prevailing theory suggests a hemorrhage resulting from excessive alcohol consumption, possibly exacerbated by a congenital condition. Some accounts hint at a more sinister end, suspecting murder orchestrated by his new wife Ildiko. Regardless of the true cause, Attila's death signaled the beginning of the end for the Hunnic Empire, which soon crumbled without his ruthless leadership at the helm. This sudden demise stood in stark contrast to his brutal, fiery reign, serving as a tragic and somewhat ignominious conclusion to the story of one of history's most feared leaders. Number 5. Sardanapalus. Sardanapalus, an Assyrian king whose existence remains steeped in legend and historical ambiguity, purportedly reigned as the last king of Assyria, embodying decadence and excess. Stories recount a leader more engrossed in luxuries and sensual pleasures than in the affairs of state. As Assyria faced mounting threats and eventual siege by a coalition of enemies, Sardanapalus was said to have chosen a dramatic and fiery end. According to the tales, as the enemy forces breached the walls of his palace, he constructed a vast funeral pyre, piling it with gold, silver, and precious fabrics. In a final act of defiance and tragedy, he set the pyre ablaze, consuming himself, his palace, and his amassed wealth in flames. This self-imposed fiery end served as a tragic conclusion to a reign marked by excess, a dark testament to the downfall of a once mighty empire, swallowed by the indulgences of its final leader. Number 6. Agamemnon. Agamemnon, a prominent figure of Greek mythology and the purported leader of the Greek forces during the Trojan War, met a tragic end upon his triumphant return from the decade-long conflict. His homecoming was anything but celebratory, as he was ensnared in a web of familial betrayal and vengeance. His wife, Clytemnestra, harboring resentment for the sacrifice of their daughter Iphigenia at the outset of the war, conspired with her lover Aegisthus to murder Agamemnon. This brutal act of regicide, conducted in the very halls that should have celebrated his return, echoed the complex tapestry of Greek tragedy, where fate and individual actions intertwined inexorably towards doom. Agamemnon's death marked a somber note in the narratives of the Trojan War, showcasing the deep-seated resentments and the tragic consequences of a hero's journey marred by sacrifices and the inevitable descent into darkness, a narrative that explores the complexities of heroism and vengeance in the ancient world. Number 7. Hannibal Barca. Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who terrified the Roman Republic, is hailed as one of the most brilliant military strategists in history. His audacious crossing of the Alps to invade Italy during the Second Punic War became a legendary tale of determination and tactical genius. However, despite his early victories, Hannibal's long campaign against Rome gradually lost momentum, leaving him unable to secure a decisive victory. Later in life, after years of political intrigue and warfare, Hannibal found himself cornered by the Romans, who sought to capture him as part of their relentless pursuit to cripple Carthaginian power. In a tragic conclusion befitting a warrior who had given everything to his homeland, Hannibal chose to evade capture and the humiliation that would surely follow. In 181 BCE, isolated and bereft of allies, he ingested poison, a final act of defiance against a relentless enemy. His death marked the end of an era, a tragic culmination of a life dedicated to the pursuit of glory and honor, leaving behind a legacy of military ingenuity that would be admired for centuries to come. Number 8. Emperor Nero. Emperor Nero, a figure synonymous with excess, cruelty, and debauchery, presided over the Roman Empire during a period marked by extravagance and decline. His reign was marred by alleged acts of tyranny, including the persecution of Christians and the suspected orchestration of the Great Fire of Rome. As Nero's leadership spiraled into chaos, opposition grew, leading to widespread discontent and rebellion. In 68 CE, facing a revolt by the Galba-led Senate and abandoned by his guards and advisors, Nero saw the walls closing in. With few options left and unable to find anyone to take his life, Nero reportedly took his own life with the assistance of a secretary, uttering the final words, "What an artist dies in me." This tragic end, steeped in irony and despair, closed the chapter on a controversial figure whose reign had oscillated between artistic ambition and ruthless tyranny. Nero's death signaled the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, a tragic culmination to a reign marked by both cultural flourish and the unrestrained abuses of imperial power, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of Roman history. Number 9. Commodus. Commodus, ascending to power in 180 CE, marks a departure from the line of philosopher kings who preceded him, steering the Roman Empire into a period of decline characterized by excess and corruption. Believing himself to be a living god, a reincarnation of Hercules, Commodus exhibited erratic and megalomaniacal behavior, engrossing himself in lavish entertainments and brutal gladiatorial combats, often participating himself. The populace and the Senate grew increasingly disillusioned with his rule, appalled by the stark departure from the stoic leadership exhibited by his father, Marcus Aurelius. The mounting discontent culminated in a conspiracy to end his rule. In 192 CE, after a turbulent reign marked by cruelty and unpredictability, Commodus met a tragic end at the hands of a wrestler named Narcissus, who was hired to assassinate him. This assassination, orchestrated by his inner circle, marked a violent end to a reign that epitomized the dangers of absolute power coupled with madness, serving as a grim cautionary tale in Roman history. Number 10. Caligula, born Gaius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, ruled as Roman emperor from 37 CE to 41 CE. His tenure notoriously marked by unrestrained extravagance, cruelty, and indications of madness. His erratic behavior and brutal methods of ruling incited fear and loathing amongst those he governed. Caligula's brief reign was characterized by financial extravagance, which drained the Roman treasury, and erratic, often sadistic actions, including humiliating senators and engaging in incestuous relationships. His despotic rule reached a boiling point when he declared himself a living god, sowing the seeds of his downfall. Ultimately, his reign of terror and insanity could not sustain, leading to a tragic yet inevitable end. In 41 CE, amidst growing opposition and disdain, Caligula was assassinated in a conspiracy involving the Praetorian Guard, senators, and equestrians. This brutal end brought closure to a reign marked by cruelty and erratic despotism, serving as a glaring example of the depths to which unchecked power could plunge a ruler, leaving a legacy marred by madness and tyranny in the annals of history. Number 11. Maximinus Thrax. Maximinus Thrax, ruling from 235 to 238 CE, has the distinct and dubious honor of being the first Roman emperor to ascend to the throne through a coup, marking the commencement of a tumultuous period known as the Crisis of the 3rd Century. A man of formidable stature and military prowess, Maximinus's reign was largely characterized by military campaigns, heavy taxation, and cruelty. His relentless drive for expansion and disregard for the welfare of the citizenry fueled widespread discontent. As unrest grew, regions of the empire began to revolt, leading to a series of confrontations. In a tragic turn of events, besieged in Aquileia during an ill-fated campaign, Maximinus found his end at the hands of his own troops, who, weary of the continuous warfare and sensing the tide of opposition against him, assassinated him in 238 CE. This abrupt end, orchestrated by his disillusioned forces, signaled the fall of a ruler whose ambition and ruthlessness had distanced him from those he ruled, encapsulating a reign marked more by fear than by glory. Number 12. Darius III. Darius III, the last emperor of the Achaemenid Empire, assumed power amidst a period of decline, with the looming threat of Alexander the Great and his determined Macedonian forces. Darius's reign was marked by a series of defeats, as he faced the relentless advance of Alexander's army. Despite attempts to rally his forces and retain the glory of the Persian Empire, Darius found himself facing an insurmountable foe. His tragic end came in 330 BCE, not at the hands of the Macedonians, but betrayed by his own satrap Bessus, who saw an opportunity to seize power amidst the chaos. Captured and subsequently murdered by Bessus and his conspirators, Darius III met a grim end, characterized by betrayal and abandonment. His death marked not only the end of his own rule, but also the collapse of the mighty Achaemenid Empire, a poignant reminder of the shifting tides of power and the ephemeral nature of glory, encapsulating the fall of a once great dynasty, swept away by the sands of time and the relentless march of a new era. Number 13. King Richard III. King Richard III, the last king of the House of York, met a brutal end on the battlefield during the English Wars of the Roses. His reign, marked by political turbulence and bloodshed, was fraught with challenges from the outset, with contentious relations with the nobility and a country embroiled in civil strife. The culmination of his troubles transpired at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, where he faced the forces of Henry Tudor, the future Henry VII. In a desperate bid to salvage his reign, Richard fought valiantly but was ultimately slain, his death signaling the end of the Plantagenet dynasty. In 2012, in a turn of events that seemed almost poetic, Richard's remains were discovered under a parking lot in Leicester, a grim testament to the tragic end of a king whose reign was marred by controversy and whose death marked the dawn of the Tudor era. Number 14. Emperor Valentinian III. Emperor Valentinian III ruled the Western Roman Empire during a period characterized by steady decline and increased vulnerability to barbarian invasions. Taking the throne as a child, his rule was heavily influenced by manipulative courtiers, leading to a reign marked by instability and strife. In 455 CE, meeting a tragic and violent end, Valentinian was assassinated by the hand of Optila, a follower of the barbarian general Petronius Maximus, who held a personal grudge against the emperor. This brutal act of vengeance marked a significant point in the dwindling fortunes of the Western Roman Empire, further pushing it towards its inevitable downfall. Valentinian III's demise was a poignant reflection of the chaos and deterioration that had engulfed the once magnificent empire, a tragic indicator of the impending end of an era of grandeur and glory. Number 15. Ahab, King of Israel. King Ahab, a prominent figure in the narratives of the Hebrew Bible, ruled the northern kingdom of Israel in the 9th century BCE. Notorious for his idolatry and his marriage to Jezebel, a Phoenician princess who encouraged the worship of Baal, Ahab's reign was marked by religious strife and moral decline. Despite his military successes, his tenure is largely portrayed as one deviating from the righteous path, a king who did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. His tragic end came during a battle against the Syrians at Ramoth-Gilead, where he was struck by a random arrow. Despite his efforts to stay alive, he bled to death in his chariot, a somber end to a reign that had strayed far from the divine commands, embodying the complexities and the tragic pitfalls of power entwined with spiritual apostasy. Number 16. Jezebel. Jezebel, a figure synonymous with deceit and manipulation in biblical narratives, was the wife of King Ahab and a forceful presence in the kingdom of Israel during the 9th century BCE. Her fervent promotion of Baal worship and persecution of the prophets of Yahweh solidified her reputation as a woman of ruthless ambition and impiety. Jezebel's tragic end came years after her husband's demise, during the reign of Joram, her son. As Jehu orchestrated a coup to eradicate the house of Ahab, Jezebel met a brutal end. Refusing to flee, she adorned herself and faced her assassins with a stoic dignity. Jehu ordered her eunuchs to throw her from a window, a fall that resulted in her death. Her body was left to be devoured by dogs, a grim prophecy fulfilled and a violent end to a life marked by religious strife and power plays, sealing her fate as one of the most vilified figures in biblical history. Number 17. Pharaoh Akhenaten. Pharaoh Akhenaten, known as the Heretic King, ruled Egypt during the 18th dynasty, introducing a form of monotheism by elevating the sun deity Aten above all other gods in the Egyptian pantheon. This religious upheaval not only challenged the established clergy, but also altered the artistic and cultural traditions of Egypt, focusing heavily on the naturalistic representation and the worship of Aten. However, his religious revolution was not well received, creating a rift between the pharaoh and the powerful priesthood of Amun. Following his death, which remains somewhat enigmatic and is speculated to have been under tragic circumstances possibly involving assassination or illness, there was a swift restoration of the old gods and a concerted effort to erase Akhenaten's legacy from history. His successors branded him a heretic, and his name was struck from official records, epitomizing the tragic fall of a ruler whose revolutionary vision was ultimately rejected and buried in the sands of time. Number 18. King Saul. King Saul, the first king of Israel, has a story steeped in tragedy. His reign began with promise, uniting the tribes of Israel and leading them against their enemies. However, as time progressed, Saul's disposition changed, spiraling into paranoia and disobedience towards God's commands. This downturn was further exacerbated by the rise of David, who was favored by God and the people. Feeling threatened and isolated, Saul's actions became increasingly erratic and ruthless. The tragic culmination of his life came in the battle against the Philistines on Mount Gilboa. Overwhelmed and fearing capture, Saul chose to end his own life by falling on his sword, a somber end to a reign that started with so much promise but ended in despair. His death marked the close of a chapter fraught with missteps and missed opportunities, embodying the tragic trajectory of a leader overtaken by his inner demons and the relentless pressures of leadership. Number 19. Boudica. In the mosaic of history, few figures shine with as much fiery determination and fearless resistance as Boudica, the courageous queen of the Iceni tribe in ancient Britain. As a leader, she emerged from the shadows of personal tragedy, galvanized by an unquenchable thirst for justice and a resolve to protect the sovereignty and dignity of her people. In the wake of her husband King Prasutagus' death, the Iceni kingdom was usurped by the Romans, a transition marred by brutal atrocities against Boudica and her daughters. This ignominious act ignited a spark within her, fueling a fierce rebellion that would bring the might of Rome to its knees, if only momentarily. Rising like a phoenix from the ashes of despair, she rallied the tribes of Britain, channeling the collective anger and humiliation into a force to be reckoned with. Under her leadership, the rebels orchestrated a series of attacks that left a trail of destruction and served as a powerful statement against Roman tyranny. Cities like Camulodunum and Londinium were razed, a clear testament to the potency of the rebellion and the wrath of a mother and a leader scorned. Boudica, atop her chariot with her daughters by her side, became the embodiment of the wild and untamed spirit of Britain, a living symbol of resistance against the oppressive forces that sought to desecrate her land and dishonor her people. Yet despite the flames of revolt that she had kindled, the odds remained overwhelmingly in favor of the well-equipped and disciplined Roman forces. As the rebellion reached its zenith, the brutal reality of war began to set in. Faced with the formidable Roman military machine, the insurgent forces found themselves on the brink of annihilation. Number 20. Leonidas burst. In the annals of history, few leaders embody the spirit of valor and sacrifice as profoundly as Leonidas I, the king of Sparta during the epic of the Greco-Persian Wars. His reign, although characterized by military strength and Spartan austerity, is primarily remembered for the climactic Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BCE. Here, amid narrow passes and rugged terrain, Leonidas led a relatively small force, which included his elite guard of 300 Spartans, in a defiant stand against the might of the Persian army, marshaled by King Xerxes I. This force was vastly outnumbered, facing an adversary that boasted a multitude of soldiers, creating a seemingly insurmountable imbalance of power. Despite this, Leonidas exhibited strategic acumen, utilizing the terrain to offset the numerical disadvantage, creating a bottleneck where the superior Persian numbers became a liability rather than an advantage. The Spartans, renowned for their martial prowess and discipline, fought with a ferocity and determination that stunned their adversaries. They held their ground, a bastion of resistance against a tide of advancing foes, their shields and spears forming an unyielding barrier. As the battle raged on, it became increasingly evident that victory, in the conventional sense, was unattainable. Yet Leonidas and his men exhibited no signs of retreat or surrender. In the face of certain death, they demonstrated an unwavering commitment to their homeland and their values. Each Spartan soldier embodied the ethos of their society, a fierce devotion to duty and a willingness to lay down their life for the greater good.